Hey, what's up guys? So if you're tuning into this video, you want to know how a 300ZX owner's experience building up their car was, especially one that needed work, or you just love 300ZXs. But either way, I'm going to tell you all about this car. So I've had this car for almost 10 years now, and I can tell you that if you're building one of these or restoring them, it's a lot of work. We attacked it, meaning me and Jesse Opie, who has done over 90% of the work on this car in really multiple stages. You know, this of course for me is a fun car that I've used for just recreation, car shows, occasional track days. And so, you know, it didn't matter to me for certain times. Of course I wanted the car, but it didn't matter to me if the car sat for 3 months at a time. So, you know, you get into it and you say, well, I'm thinking about picking one of these up. Well, just remember that my car is not an anomaly. There are many examples of neglected Zs or just moderately maintained Zs that, you know, over the course of 25 plus years need extensive work. And so to kind of summarize in terms of just how much work has been done to this car, my spreadsheet has over 90 parts ordered. Every major system by Jesse has kind of been replaced. Fuel system includes a fuel pump, fuel regulator. I did my fuel lines. I actually upgraded to braided fuel lines. I did my fuel injectors. So you can imagine that, you know, that alone is just a pretty big undertaking, is doing the entire fuel system. Conditioning go, which is common on these cars. So I converted it actually, the coolant. And so that was a major undertaking. I needed a new compressor. Essentially with these cars, everything is obviously antiquated because it's 25 years old. So I took my Hicas out. On top of that, another major thing done besides the Hicas was getting a boost control, you know, just for fun, boost controller, modifications, you know, upping the boost, getting my exhaust, my clutch up to specs this way that it can support all the power. One-piece drive shaft. So you can imagine that, you know, all these things that, again, Jesse did most of it. I just did some suspension work in my interior, was a ton of time. So where am I going with all this? Well, let me tell you that, you know, for me, it was a fun project. I really took the time to research every part. I highly recommend that unless you're trying to build a 700, 800 horsepower Z, that you follow my specs to a T. So I will link off a description to all my parts. And I also recommend that, you know, if you're going to take the time to build it, try your best, you know, to either take it on as a huge undertaking where, you know, you do it for a year, whether you do it yourself or not, and you know, just basically spend all the money at once, or do it the way I did it, which is going to take you more time, but at least you'll get to drive the car in between and you won't rack up a huge bill at one time. Because I would say, you know, all these parts, Nissan OEM parts, are not cheap, and most of the aftermarket parts are usually even more expensive. So essentially what I'm getting at is that you're going to spend a pretty penny restoring one of these. Jalopnik actually did an article that said $11,000 was the cost in parts to kind of get one in poor running condition back to spec. I know mine cost me more than that, but I've also got modifications and I did cosmetic things, which I'll show you actually. Jesse actually repainted this entire car, and I'm going to show you that as well. So why should you invest the money and time into rebuilding or bring it back to health, or doing a full-on build with a 300ZX? Well, I'll give you my reasons. I think the first primary reason is because these cars were special, and they still are. It was actually a really eye-opening experience for me when I went to a car meet not too long ago, and essentially I was surrounded by exotic modern cars. Pretty much everything you can think of at a top-notch car show was there, and people were coming to me that own these cars and asking me all about my car. and tell me all about how this was their dream car as a kid and how they don't see 300ZXs in this condition at all. So, I mean, it really does give you that, like, you know, childhood dream, you know, that's, you know, reminder of the 90s, because that's the era that I grew up in. So it's like, it's a constant reminder of your childhood. Another big reason why I would recommend doing it is because this is a pure raw car, right? You don't have traction control and all the other nannies. Sure, you could turn them off on a modern car, but this is the real deal. So yeah, you know, that's my suggestions to you in terms of, you know, what to do is, you know, do your research, be prepared, have lots of patience. If you're doing the work yourself, be very careful, because the engine bay on these cars are extremely tight and they're very difficult to work on. And if you're hiring someone, find a good mechanic. Be sure to vet them out properly and be patient with them, because the gremlins surprises come up with these cars all the time.